Israel has been targeting Iranian sites for over a week. The Ayatollahs are hiding in bunkers. They're afraid. Iran's leaders look weak and confused. Israel says it clearly. We want to bring down the regime in Iran. And now, it feels like the end is near. The rule of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei lasted 35 years, based on fear, violence, and religious control. But now, even the people of Iran have lost faith. They're tired. Protests have broken out again and again. And now, the moment has come. But who will lead Iran if the regime falls? Suddenly, someone appears. Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah. Long ago, his family ruled the country, but in 1979, the Shah was overthrown. Reza was only 18. Since then, he's lived in exile for 46 years. But he never gave up. He's always dreamed of bringing freedom back to Iran. And today, he says, "I'm ready. I have a plan." He promises democracy, peace, and a better future. This could change not just Iran, but the whole world. But they must act now. There's no time to waste. History is knocking at the door. He was born in an age of empire, in an Iran that dreamed of becoming modern and powerful, like Europe, yet remained proudly rooted in ancient Persian soil. Reza Pahlavi entered the world in Tehran on October 31st, 1960, inside a royal palace filled with guards, servants, and loyal courtiers. His father, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was the Shah, the last king of Iran. His mother, Farah Diba, was the Shabanu, a queen who embodied elegance and progress. His birth was a national event. To mark the arrival of the future heir to the throne, the government released 98 political prisoners and announced a reduction in income taxes. Even then, the people knew. This boy was the continuation of a dynasty, a promise of stability, the future king. When Reza was just 7 years old, he was officially declared Crown Prince of Iran during his father's coronation in 1967. He stood beside his parents at the ancient ruins of Pasargadae, where the Persian Empire had once begun and now symbolized its future. He grew up in the palace and attended a private elite school, the Reza Pahlavi School, created exclusively for royal family members and close court associates. At age 11, he took his first solo flight. At 12, he earned his pilot's license. He dreamed not only of wearing a crown, but of becoming a military officer. He loved sports, supported the Taj Abadan football club, and stayed much more grounded in the real world than people might expect from a boy raised with a crown over his head. In August 1978, he was sent to the United States to continue his flight training at Reese Air Force Base in Texas. There, he trained on military aircraft like the T-37 and T-38, as a real cadet preparing to serve his country, not just inherit it. But everything changed. In Iran, a revolution erupted and protesters filled the streets. In January 1979, the Shah left the country. In February, Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile. The monarchy collapsed and an Islamic republic took its place. In March, Reza had to leave the base early before completing his training. He was 18 years old. He left Iran as a grown man, not a frightened child, but a young adult who already understood the meaning of homeland, honor, and duty. His younger brother and sisters had left the country as children and remembered little. But he remembered. He remembered the streets of Tehran, the parades, the faces of ordinary people, the dust, the sunlight, his country. He knew what he had lost, and he knew what he wanted to return to. From that moment on, he has lived with one dream, to return freedom to the people of Iran. In March 1980, Reza Pahlavi arrived in Cairo with his family. It wasn't a visit, it was exile. His father, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was gravely ill. The last weeks of the Shah's life were filled with silence and uncertainty. During this time, some monarchist circles began to whisper, was Reza really ready to be the next Shah? He was too young, they said. He lacked political experience. He wasn't interested in state affairs. Some even proposed bypassing him in favor of his younger brother, 13-year-old Ali Reza, and establishing a regency council. But the Shah rejected this idea. He knew who his true successor was. On July 27, 1980, the Shah died. His wife, Farah Pahlavi, declared herself regent, a symbolic gesture. 3 months later, on his 20th birthday, Reza Pahlavi proclaimed himself the new king of Iran. He declared himself Reza Shah II. He had no throne, army, or land, but he had a name, a legacy, and a purpose. He became a king without a crown. However, the next day, U.S. State Department spokesman John Tratner publicly disassociated the American government from Reza Pahlavi, stating that the United States continued recognizing the existing Iranian government. Reza was left alone, a young monarch without a country, living in exile in Cairo's Kuba Palace. There, he began to establish ties with monarchist circles. But most other opposition groups, especially those on the left, rejected him. In March 1981, he stated for the Persian New Year, calling on all opponents of the Islamic regime to unite behind him and begin a national resistance. However, in June of that same year, when President Bani Sadr was removed from office and dozens of high-ranking officials, including Chief Justice Mohammad Beheshti, were assassinated, Reza remained silent. It wasn't until August that he revealed he had been secretly planning to overthrow the regime. He said, "So far, I have been unwilling to unveil the existence of the concerted plans, for I do not wish to jeopardize the lives of some of our best children. Many of our actions have been unknown to you, but I want to assure you that the necessary steps are being taken in the best orderly way to save Iran." It was the first public indication that the fight was still alive, behind closed doors. In 1982, former Mossad officer Yaakov Nimrodi told the BBC in a radio interview that, along with Adnan Khashoggi and Adolf Schwimmer, he had taken part in a coup plot to return Reza Pahlavi to the throne. According to journalist Samuel Segev, the plan had the backing of the CIA and the Israeli cabinet. But in 1983, after Prime Minister Menachem Begin's resignation, the new Israeli leadership decided Israel should not be involved in a new adventure. The plan was abandoned. Still, Reza did not stop. On May 1, 1986, he announced that he had formed a government in exile to re-establish a constitutional monarchy in Iran. But over time, his tone began to change. On his official website, he wrote, "The state of Iran should become democratic and secular, and human rights should be respected. Whether the form of government would be that of a constitutional monarchy or a republic, he would like to leave up to the people of Iran." He no longer insisted on the throne. He insisted on the people's right to choose. He began to call for free elections, for a secular state. He wrote about the need for free and fair elections for all freedom-loving individuals and political ideologies, and urged all democratic forces to work together. He was no longer just a royal heir. He became a symbol. In February 2011, as street protests erupted in Tehran, Reza said, "Fundamental and necessary change is long overdue for our region, and we have a whole generation of young Egyptians and Iranians not willing to take no for an answer." He added, "Democratization is now imperative that cannot be denied. It is only a matter of time before the whole region can transform itself." In June 2018, he once again spoke out. "I believe Iran must be a secular parliamentary democracy. The final form has to be decided by the people." And in December that same year, speaking at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, he called for non-military support for Iranians trying to replace the Islamist regime with a secular democracy. As one news report described it, he is not openly calling for the restoration of the peacock throne. He casts himself more as a symbol than a politician, but has called himself ready to serve my country. He now speaks less like a Shah and more like a citizen, but still as someone who has never forgotten that he was born to serve Iran. Years had passed. Reza Pahlavi was no longer a young exile. He had become a known figure, and his name was being heard more often inside Iran. In 2022, after a deadly building collapse in Abadan, protests broke out again. Reza said this showed the regime was collapsing. He pointed to the downing of a Ukrainian plane, banned COVID vaccines, and rising food prices, calling them unnecessary deaths caused by government failure. He spoke directly to those in the Iranian military who didn't believe in the regime, urging them to resist peacefully. Many protesters chanted his name, but Reza clarified, "I don't tell people what to do. I'm not a political leader." He wasn't trying to rule, only to support the people's voice. In early 2023, he asked the UK and Europe to label Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist group, calling it the biggest tooth of the regime. He said more people than ever now believed the Islamic Republic couldn't be fixed. It had to be replaced. Many dissidents wanted him to lead a new government, but again, he said he wouldn't run for office. It would be up to the people to choose Iran's future, monarchy or republic. His biggest concern was not elections, but how to deal with the military and bring justice. High-ranking officials should face trial, he said, but others could be forgiven and return to normal life, just like after World War II or apartheid in South Africa. In the spring, Reza gave a speech at Oxford University, saying, "Secularism is a prerequisite to democracy." He called for free internet access in Iran and asked for peaceful change, no violence. Outside, people gathered with flags, chanting his name. They weren't just curious, they were ready. Then something unexpected happened. On April 17, 2023, Reza Pahlavi and his wife visited Israel. He said he came to rebuild historic ties between Iran and Israel. On Holocaust Remembrance Day, he visited the Western Wall, Yad Vashem, and met with Israeli leaders. He also offered condolences to a family who lost loved ones in a terror attack. This wasn't just politics. It was a symbol of a future where Iran is free, peaceful, and no longer cut off from the world. Reza Pahlavi still says the same thing. Iran has a chance. Many call him the last hope. Others say he's just a symbol of the past. But the question being asked more and more often in Iranian homes, on university campuses, among the diaspora, and across social media is this: can Reza Pahlavi play a fundamental role in Iran's future? The answer is not as simple as it seems. On one hand, Reza Pahlavi has not lived in Iran for decades. He has no army, political party, or structured movement inside the country. In 2009, a report by the Brookings Institution said that he lacked an organized following within Iran, and that no serious monarchist movement existed. The report noted that he had little in common with the intellectuals and students who make up the core of the reform movement. That was true at the time. He had grown up abroad. He had not experienced prison, persecution, or fear like many other opposition activists. The idea of monarchy in Iran is still sensitive. While some remember the Shah's time as more stable and prosperous, not everyone wants to see a crown return. During the 2017 to 2018 protests, some videos on social media showed demonstrators chanting slogans in favor of his grandfather, Reza Shah I. They called out, "Long live the Shah!" But often, those same crowds responded with shouting or whistles. Not everyone agreed. But things have changed. By 2022 and 2023, as the country was rocked again by protests, this time after the death of Mahsa Amini, Reza Pahlavi's name began to gain new momentum. On social media and at public rallies, younger Iranians started posting videos, quotes, memes, and direct appeals to him, seeing him as a potential figure to lead a transitional period. In January 2023, Iranian writer and analyst Arash Azizi wrote, "To any fair observer of Iran, Pahlavi has a certain degree of support in Iranian society, although it is hard to discern just how wide this support is." He also noted that many well-known dissidents and celebrities were speaking in his favor. And these names matter: singer Dariush Iqbali, actress Shohreh Aghdashloo, actor Hamid Farrokhnejad, and Olympic medalist Kimia Alizadeh. All came out publicly in support of Pahlavi. Tehran-based intellectual Khashayar Dahimi even said, "I believe that if there was a referendum today and Reza Pahlavi was on the ballot, he'd easily win because people don't know anyone other than him." People are tired, and they want someone familiar, someone they can trust or at least recognize. He also enjoys strong support among the Iranian diaspora, especially from those who left Iran during the 1979 revolution. Los Angeles, home to about 600,000 Iranians, is often called Tehrangeles, and many are proud monarchists. That's where his name is loudest at protests and rallies. Still, not everyone supports him. In a 2013 survey of Iranian Americans conducted by George Mason University, 85% of participants said they did not support any opposition figure. Of the 15% who did, only 20% supported Reza Pahlavi. That's a small number, but it is a voice. Then came 2023, and with it, a wave. A petition on change.org called for Reza Pahlavi to be recognized as a representative for a transitional period. It gathered over 460,000 signatures. He called on Iranians around the world to protest on February 11th, the 44th anniversary of the Islamic Republic. And people responded. There were rallies in New York, London, Berlin, Paris, Sydney, and Toronto. He personally joined the massive demonstration in Los Angeles, where more than 80,000 people gathered. They weren't just there to listen. They came to show they were ready. So, can he really return? Can he lead the country? Can he be in charge? He says no. He doesn't want power. He doesn't want to be president or prime minister. He wants to remain a voice, a symbol, a unifier, not a ruler. And that might just be his greatest strength. Because today, as Iran stands on the edge of change, people are not necessarily looking for someone to take control. They are looking for someone who won't betray them, someone who speaks out but doesn't speak down, someone who is willing to stand beside them, not above them. In June 2025, as Israel launched massive airstrikes across Iranian territory, the world held its breath. The Middle East was on fire. But while many stayed silent, one voice rang louder than ever. The voice of Reza Pahlavi. He didn't hide. He didn't hesitate. He stepped forward to speak. First came interviews with major global news outlets, BBC, CNN, Deutsche Welle. Then came his statement on social media, spreading rapidly across the Iranian diaspora and even piercing through censorship inside Iran. The Islamic Republic has reached its end and is in the process of collapsing, he declared on June 17th. He compared Khamenei to a frightened rat hiding underground and claimed the regime had lost control. This wasn't just another statement for many Iranians, it was a signal. He didn't speak like a politician. He spoke like someone who shared the pain of the people. In these difficult days, my heart is with all the defenseless citizens who have been harmed and have fallen victim to Khamenei's warmongering and delusions. He acknowledged the suffering. He admitted that the war could have been prevented. But now, he said, there's no going back. The collapse has begun. And then came the rallying cry that echoed across the country. Now is the time to rise, the time to reclaim Iran. He called out to every corner of the country, Bandar Abbas to Tabriz, Isfahan to Avaz, as if speaking to each Iranian directly. Let us all come forward and bring about the end of this regime. He addressed the military, police, and state employees, not with threats, but with an offer. By standing with the people, you can save your lives. It wasn't a warning, it was an invitation to be part of history. And finally, he tried to ease the nation's greatest fear. What comes after the fall? Do not fear the day after the fall of the Islamic Republic. Iran will not descend into civil war or instability. We have a plan for Iran's future. We are prepared for the first 100 days after the fall. He promised there will be no chaos, no power vacuum. There's a clear plan, there's a team, and there's confidence that a new Iran, free and flourishing, can be built. Reza Pahlavi has a clear vision for Iran's future, and it's simple. First, save the country from collapse, and then let the people decide what kind of government they want. At the Munich summit, where different opposition groups gathered, he said it plainly. Our goal today is solely the salvation of Iran, and in the future, our mission is to hold free elections in Iran. In other words, it's not about power or revenge, it's about freedom. He believes the regime is already falling apart, and now is the time to push harder. But instead of building another political party, Reza wants everyone who supports change to work together. He says we need a system for cooperation so that different groups stop arguing and start uniting. He insists everything must be transparent and that Iranians should vote in a national referendum to decide what comes next, whether it's a republic, a monarchy, or something else. In his own words, our future duty is to establish in the Constituent Assembly a democratic path based on the people's vote. Opposition leaders have already agreed that Reza should lead the country through the transition period. He's been called the leader of the national revolution and transitional period. But this isn't about bringing back the throne. He's made it clear he doesn't want political power. His role is to guide the country to its first free elections and help rebuild order. Reza also speaks often about the pain Iran is living through. Women fighting not just against the hijab, but for real equality. Nature destroyed, with poisoned air choking the cities. People growing poorer while food prices skyrocket, and power outages that leave even hospitals in the dark. He says this suffering results from cruel, incompetent leadership, and it must end. According to Reza, the change has already begun. All that's left is for people to unite and finish what's been started. And this time, he says, it will be different. This time, the people will decide. What do you think? Can Reza Pahlavi truly carry out his plan? Do you believe the people of Iran will support him? That he can unite the country, hold free elections, and bring freedom and hope back to Iran? Or will his voice remain just a voice from exile? History has surprised us many times, and maybe we're standing at the edge of another turning point. But does Reza have the strength to do it? And more importantly, will he be allowed? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you found this story interesting. There are many more to come.